I looked at this law. I looked at this law prior to last night. We've been talking about Tim Walz and his radical social policies for a while on the show. Here is the law. Okay, it is Section 56, Minnesota Statutes 2022, subsection 145.423, subdivision 1. It is amended. Tim Walz became governor in 2018, and they amended it in 2022. It took effect in 2023. Subdivision 1. It used to read recognition, medical care, a born alive infant as a result of an abortion shall be fully recognized as a human person and accorded immediate protection under the law. This piece of it was passed before he became governor in 2015. All reasonable measures consistent with good medical practice, including the compilation of appropriate medical records, shall be taken by the responsible medical personnel to preserve the life and health of the born alive infant. That's how it used to read. Tim Walz got into office and he changed it with the Democrats in his state house to now read recognition. Medical care is crossed out. Recognition, care, it now reads. And instead of a born alive infant as a result of an abortion, it now reads an infant who is born alive shall be fully recognized as a human person and accorded immediate protection under the law. All reasonable measures consistent with good medical practice, including the compilation of appropriate medical records, shall be taken by the responsible medical personnel, and they crossed out to preserve the life and health of the born alive infant and changed it to all responsible medical personnel shall care for the infant who is born alive. Do you no longer have to preserve the life and health? You just have to care for the infant. What this means in the law and what they so heavily debated in Minnesota was the switch from medical care to comfort care is how it's referred to, because this is a thing that's happened in many states where they've had this debate between the pro-lifers and the pro-choicers. Must you try to save the baby that you just tried to kill in utero, but you failed and somehow the baby was born alive? Must you provide life-saving care, or must you just provide so-called comfort care until the baby expires or lives? And in Minnesota, he changed the law to say no medical care is necessary. You can just do comfort care. And secondly, he revoked the requirements that they keep track of the number of babies this is happening to. And here's the other thing, Michael. Let's just stay there, because then we'll go next level next. But those are the facts that J.D. Vance tried to raise and that sociopath denied repeatedly, getting indignant, saying, that's not true. You're trying to distort the law and the way it's written. This has been misread and was fact-checked at the ABC debate. Those are all lies.
If it's so easy to fact-check, if it's so easy to debunk, then why don't you just do it, Tim? You've got the stage. That's the point of a debate, is to defend your record and to propose your policies. So the reason he has to point and say, it was vaguely fact-checked by some other people on some other network is because he's trying to pass the buck on lying to somebody else, because this lie is so without credibility. You know, we know what comfort care means here. The other Democrat governor, Ralph Northam, explained it in an interview that the left-wing media are trying to deny and debunk and hide. But he said exactly what it means in this scenario, which is if the baby survives the abortion, the baby will be put on a table somewhere and kept comfortable while a conversation ensues between the doctor and the mother. The comfort is the comfort of neglect and the comfort of death. Even at this term, when it's used in less egregious ways, any person who's ever had a loved one enter into hospice knows exactly the difference between life-saving medical care and comfort care or palliative care or hospice care. The former is designed to keep the person alive. The latter is designed to await death. That's all that it's for.
But what they do in hospice care is a lot kinder and gentler than what they do to these babies who, again, they just tried to kill, but they survived it anyway. I'll give you this, Michael. I went back and looked. There's an EMT who's a GOP state representative in Minnesota. His name is Jeff Backer. And he said I'm trying to read my own writing. I think it's Browns Valley or Bonus Valley. Anyway, he's a GOP rep in Minnesota. And he also works as an EMT, and said he had a 21-week-old born in the back of his ambulance. And he said, if I gave that 21-week-old who was born in my ambulance, quote, comfort care and only comfort care, I would be charged with murder. Quote, comfort care means lay on a hard surface. Comfort care means lay on a hard surface, maybe a blanket. That's a Minnesota state lawmaker who was objecting to this shift, saying, this is barbaric, what you guys are asking to do now to these infants. So you're exactly right. Only it's even worse for these infants who don't have any of the advantages that a fully grown elderly adult would.
And the reason they have to use euphemisms, and the reason that Tim Walz in this case is really just trying to avoid the issue entirely, say, it was already debunked, it's been talked about elsewhere, move along, rights, freedom, happiness, women, joy. The reason they have to do that is because whether you're talking about medical care or so-called comfort care, which, as you rightly note, Megyn, doesn't involve very much comfort for these babies, you are acknowledging that the baby is a human being, the sort of creature that is entitled to care and that can benefit from care. But also, as you rightly note, in abortion, the baby has just been the target of an attempted murder. So the baby has survived the abortion. The purpose of the abortion is to kill the baby. The baby has survived, as sometimes happens. Well, what are we going to do now? You're faced with the irreducible and unavoidable humanity of the baby. That's why Tim Walz has to move off of this. And for many years, with abortion being a controversial issue, especially among people who just don't have a totally coherent set of policy views and don't think about politics all that much, they're a little wishy-washy on the issue. Republicans have argued that we need to be focusing on abortion where it is most clearly egregious, where it's the most easy to understand, and that is late-term abortion. And you want to talk about lies during this campaign. During Kamala's debate with Trump, and we've heard it ever since then, they have denied that late-term abortion happens in America. That's not true. There's a lot of late-term abortion in America. And if a late-term abortion weren't happening in America, why would Democrat governors like Andrew Cuomo, or like Tim Walz for that matter, seek to enshrine ever more rights to late-term abortion in recent years? That's the first question. But then the second part they say is, late-term abortion doesn't happen, and when it does happen, it's always to save the life of the mother or for some extreme medical necessity. That also is not true because we don't have a lot of reporting requirements in a lot of states. We don't have great data here, but the data that we do have suggest that late-term abortions happen for the exact same reason that early abortions happen. This is frequently elective because people just wait a long time, or they weren't told that they were pregnant, or because they, for whatever reason, financial stress or personal relational reasons, just don't want the baby. And so the response to that is to kill the baby. Well, when we're talking about it at the late term, as J.D. Vance, I thought, masterfully did during the debate, we see why that is barbaric, why that is inhumane, and why I think that's not going to play in Peoria, which is why Tim Walz has to get off the subject.
Tim Walz could have said, we ran the numbers, and the vast majority of cases in which a mother aborts her third trimester child, it is because the infant has been catastrophically injured in some way. Something is catastrophically wrong with the infant in the womb, and the mother is painfully making the choice to try to spare this infant whatever's coming its way, some horrific life, that will last 2 days, etc. Pro-lifers would say, still not okay. Many pro-choicers would say, that one's okay with me, okay? He could have said that, but instead he just lied and said, this doesn't happen. This is all lies. It's been fact-checked. You're misreading the law. Those truly are lies. I want the audience to understand me. I am not some pro-life advocate who's out here all the time like Lila Rose. I am telling you the truth. The law is exactly as J.D. Vance said, and Tim Walz lied. So that led to this exchange that was pretty remarkable on CNN, where they had 4 against 1. Scott Jennings is the sole Republican who goes out there. And this Alyssa Farah, who's the pretend Republican who goes on The View and CNN, she was there. And so was David Axelrod. He's a Democrat. Anyway, watch this. Okay, watch.
Walz totally lied about the post-abortion infant Bill totally lied about that. And number two, he totally sidestepped it is true. He totally sidestepped the question about what restrictions do you prefer, just like Harris. I mean, he essentially ratified the position, which is no restrictions.
Because I do not think that's what the Minnesota law states. I wish that Republicans would stop saying, oh, they're allowing babies to be killed once they're born.
This week in Minnesota, there were 8 deaths among infants who survived abortion attempts during Tim Walz's tenure as governor. It happened. They don't want to talk about the fact that it happened, but there were children.
What's the source?
First of all, let me ask you a question. Since you've deeply researched this, what were the condition of these babies when they were born? What was the participation of the family?
They tried to abort the babies, and they survived the abortion, and then they died.
And you think that families casually tossed them aside?
No, I think.
Tell me what their condition was, Scott. Could they have survived them? Was it a case of families not wanting children to suffer when they were told that they are doomed?
If I couldn't articulate a single restriction, I would attack Trump.
This is what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz believes, is that it's none of your business what women do with their body. And so stay out of our doctor's offices and stay out of our bedrooms.
Well, I guess I'll have to speak up for the babies. They're not here to speak for themselves. Lord have mercy.
She rolled her eyes. She rolled her eyes when he said, I have to stick up for the babies. Now, let me give you the data because we've been following this closely on the show. There's a great piece by the National Catholic Register, and people might roll their eyes that it's a Catholic organization. Go ahead and look at the article because it offers all the arguments of the other side, too. They've got a lot of people who were in favor of this law, and they give their voice a full hearing. But they did a very good piece on exactly what went down in Minnesota around these numbers. David Axelrod, listen up. During the 8 years that the Born Alive Infants Protection Act was in effect, that's the one that was passed in 15 and stayed in place till 23 when Walz repealed it. The state's health agency reported, and they had to report back then because Walz had not removed the reporting requirement yet, 24 babies. It's not 8. 24 babies were born alive after an attempted abortion. Now, some of those preceded Tim Walz becoming governor. In 2015, listen up, David, talking to you. 2015, it was 5. We're just talking about one state. 2016, another 5. 2017, 3. 2018, Tim Walz becomes governor. It's 3. 2019, 3. 2020, 0. 2021, 5, 2022, 0, 2023, and 2024, we don't know because Tim Walz started telling the hospitals, you don't have to tell us how many. We don't need or want to know. All 24 died. All 24 of the infants born after an attempted abortion that was botched died after they were left on the table. 10 had fatal fetal conditions, quote, incompatible with life. 4 were medically pre-viable, meaning they were too underdeveloped to live on their own. We don't know what week they were born of the pregnancy. 2 were, quote, barely clinging to life. I don't know what that means. Barely clinging to life to me does not mean you let it die. It means you try to help it live. And at that point, they were required under the law to at least try. 2 were barely clinging to life. As I said, 1 in 2016 had transient cardiac conditions, and 1 in 2017 had a low APGAR score, which really just means the baby needs medical attention. It could be something like insufficient oxygen. So again, these are conditions that under the new law, they would not be required to try to save the babies, and they could potentially live. Somebody with just a low APGAR score or a transient, meaning temporary cardiac condition. Anyway, all of this happened. And then Tim Walz becomes governor in 2018. And from that point forward, 11 babies at least were born alive and died. And it's going to be more than that since we don't know 23 and 24. The 8 others, Michael, were described when reporting was required only in, quote, vague language. For 7, comfort care measures were provided as planned. For 1 in 2017, no specific steps were taken to preserve life, or at least no specific steps were reported. So we really don't know, but these were not all catastrophically doomed babies from the sound of this reporting. Kamala Harris is proposing massive tax hikes right now, an almost 40% top income tax rate, almost 40% on top of what you pay for the state. 7% increase to the corporate tax, a capital gains tax on unrealized gains for some. And then there's the fact that she's proposing to add almost $2 trillion to a current $2 trillion deficit. You might be thinking it's time to make more of your savings tax sheltered and inflation sheltered for that matter. That's why I want to tell you about Birch Gold Group. Birch Gold will assist you in converting an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. And the best news is you don't pay 1 penny out of pocket. Just text the letters MK to 989898 and get a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just information on fortifying your savings before the crazy reality hits. Well, before the crazy really hits. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers. Just text MK to the number 989898 for your free info kit today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.